biggest takeover in the energy industry in 3 years. And if analysts are right, it could be just the beginning. Exxon Mobil will buy XTO Energy for $31 billion in stock. And it's a bet that U.S. emissions restrictions will boost the demand for natural gas. Jason Gammel of Macquarie Securities, he is an expert in the industry. This makes Exxon Mobil the biggest natural gas producer in the United States. Good to have you with us, Jason.
Thank you.
So you've been following XTO. You had a buy rating basically on the shares. How much of this is really all about buying XTO Energy's management?
I think it's a huge component of it, Pimm. And as a matter of fact, even on the conference call today, Exxon Mobil referenced not only the asset base that they were acquiring, but the technical expertise. And I would really view the success of this transaction as something we're not going to be able to measure until a couple of years down the road, when we find out whether Exxon Mobil really has retained that expertise that was such an important part of the XTO story.
Why is it such an important part? Is it because of all of those natural gas shale plays that they've got the know-how, but Exxon Mobil doesn't?
Exxon Mobil knows how to drill a horizontal well, and they know how to complete a horizontal well, but what they don't have experience in is drilling hundreds of these types of wells on an annual basis. And I think scaling up the process is where XTO's management is going to really come in handy. And of course, they're also bringing in a very large drilling inventory of these very types of prospects. So that's obviously an important piece of it as well.
All right. Now, part of the whole deal also is taking a look at free cash flow, right? I mean, isn't that what also XTO brings to the table?
Absolutely. And what we don't know at this point, because Exxon Mobil has not talked about what their plans are for capital spend, is whether they'll continue to try to grow these assets at 10% a year and spin off about a third of the cash as free, or whether they'll ratchet back the growth expectations and pull a little more cash out of the business. This is a business that could very well generate a couple of $1 billion a year for Exxon Mobil and still provide them with a growth platform.
Where are the big properties for XTO? I mean, we talk about in the shale plays, but let's go through some of them. So let's talk about some of those shale areas.
The most important shale play for XTO is the Barnett Shale, which is in and around Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas. That's actually where the company's based, is Fort Worth. That's their most important shale play, but they're also well positioned in the Fayetteville Shale, which is in Arkansas and is really primarily being developed by Southwestern. They have a position in the Haynesville that they just started drilling. That's really more of an East Texas position as well. And then they're also an important player in the Bakken Shale, which is actually an oil shale rather than a natural gas shale play. That's in North Dakota.
When you look at the expertise that you say is necessary, is there any issue that there's going to be increased production from XTO? Because in your note, you talked about, okay, there are a couple points. We like the free cash flow that's being generated, but you also like the organic production growth.
And that was a component also of the technical abilities of the company. The when to know, when to drill, and keep your decline rates down is a very important management process. That's something XTO would bring to the table. Again, I think Exxon Mobil can go either way on this. They can either continue at a high level of growth, which would be equal to about a percentage point to Exxon Mobil, where it would be 10% in XTO, or they can use it as a cash flow generator. And I think they'll probably move back and forth between those two objectives depending on the year.
Does this open the door to a lot of other acquisitions in the natural gas field, do you think?
Well, if nothing else, it resets the bar on valuations. Now, it's always difficult to predict what's going to happen in the acquisition front, and really, every time we've had an acquisition in energy, it's been the harbinger of a big wave, and those actually haven't really happened. The only time you really had a wave was the late 90s when oil prices were at $10. So it's certainly possible, but I don't necessarily. There's not that many buyers out there that have $41 billion to put to work.
You don't have $31 billion.
I'm trying to raise it right now.
Well, I mean, when you just curious, because did you get a lot of calls today from investors saying, okay, so tell me who's next?
That's by far the most common question I received today.
All right, and were you able to give them any hints?
Well, I think if you look at the characteristics of what XTO brings to the table, it's a very deep drilling inventory in shale plays, and I think that the companies that have positioned themselves well in the shale plays would be the most likely candidates. That would be Southwestern, Chesapeake.
See, I'm doing this just because I know that this is going to